So how did you study for the MCAT? Would you recommend a MCAT prep course? If so, which one? If not, what resources did you use to study? Yeah, so I studied for the MCAT. I did use a prep course. I was working part-time and then studying the rest of the time. So I had, and the studying was essentially a full-time job. I felt like I needed someone to schedule me in and to provide me with a structure of studying in order for me to retain as much information as I possibly could and be as efficient as possible while still working. That being said, if you feel like you are structured enough and that you have the discipline and you can self-schedule all your study habits and feel confident and successful with that, then I really don't believe that you need to do a prep course. They are expensive, and it oftentimes is seen as a barrier for people who want to write it or want to pursue medicine, because the MCAT itself is expensive enough. But paying for someone to teach you and paying for more resources are especially pricey as well. So if you're someone like me who needs, your hand held a little bit and some help along the way in scheduling, and you get distracted quite easily, maybe a course is something that's something that you could consider. I know that I would imagine, I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine that having no longer having in-person big lectures in lecture halls would probably have cut back on the price now that everything is virtual, but I don't know that for sure. So then would you recommend the MCAT prep course? Yeah, like I said, you don't have to do one. If so, which one? I did Prep 101, and they used the resources from Exam Crackers. And I haven't checked in recently to see if they're still using the same resources, but I found using Exam Crackers and then having some friends that were using Kaplan, it seemed like Exam Crackers was a lot more concise and a lot less detail, which is really great for the majority of the exam. You don't want to get bogged down in too much detail. And plus the Exam Cracker books, I just found them more visually appealing than the Kaplan books, which when you're studying for hours, your eyes start to go blurry when you're only seeing one color on the page if you're using a Kaplan book. I also used a ton of practice tests, and that was definitely the most useful part. When you're studying for any big test, and especially standardized tests, the best way to prepare is to just do as many practice tests as you can. Test yourself with practice problems, with full practice exams. You want to have a nice strict schedule for, I would say, at least 2 to 3 months outside of your exam. You want to start structuring how many exams you should be writing in terms of practice tests each month, each week, and then leading up to the exam, when you start getting closer and closer, you want to ramp up the testing and ramp down the pure studying. And then when you're within about a week, you want to start doing things that really make you feel confident, rather than trying to do a bunch of new stuff that you haven't learned yet. Because, as much as it is something about, having to memorize a lot of content, it's also a lot about examsmanship and how to write an exam. And if you are going in very unconfident and haven't done as much practice as you could have, or as much positive practice as you could have, you might write more poorly than someone who might know less than you but has been a better exam preparer. And that's stuff that I learned from my dad, who made his career from teaching people how to write exams. And it works. All right.